Okay, I know there is a lot of other Archviz software out there these days, and a lot of people come at me in the comments on my courses or on YouTube and say, 3ds Max is dead, or even that 3ds Max plus VRay workflow is not the best way to do Archviz anymore. Well, I disagree, and I'm going to give you my top 5 reasons why. I understand that many of you might have different workflows or different Archviz needs, and you might have programs that you prefer that are not the same ones that I prefer, that you think are better. Maybe this is because of price or speed or overall power and capabilities, whatever it might be. Remember that I also have courses in various other software like Twinmotion, SketchUp plus Lumion, Unreal Engine. These are all great software that are very good at what they do. I also understand that my needs and workflow and goals in Archviz might be different than someone else's. And there are various different levels of visualization that may be needed. But for highly realistic, professional, architectural illustrations, visualizations, animations, I still choose 3ds Max as my core Archviz software. I'm going to make my case in this video for why I think 3ds Max is still the best way to go. And if you think my points suck, then come at me in the comments. I'd love to hear your side of the discussion. And if you want to know the ultimate reason why I think Max is the best, or if you want to get a screaming deal on learning 3ds Max for yourself, stay tuned to the end of the video. Okay, let's get into it with point number 1. So the first thing is pricing options. And this may seem like a strange one because to me 3ds Max has seemed way overpriced for a really long time. However, with the introduction of Indie license, it actually became a really good deal. Mind you, this price does not apply to everyone, so if you're a big company, you can just ignore this one, but for indie users, 3ds Max is an amazing value. Let's compare. 3ds Max Indie for 1 year costs $305. The full price is $1,875. That's if you don't qualify for the Indie license. If you look at SketchUp Pro, it's $299 a year, but 3ds Max capabilities are much more akin to SketchUp Studio, which is $699 a year. Okay, so a lot more than the Indie license still. Revit, I'm reluctant to even call this an Archviz software because it's definitely made specifically for a different purpose, but it costs $2,805 a year. Of course, 3ds Max includes full rendering capabilities built in with high-end render engine, Arnold, and that is certainly worth something as well. For example, VRay costs $466 a year for the most basic license. Real-time Archviz software can also be super expensive, and it doesn't even include the modeling capabilities. Lumion all by itself is $749 a year for the standard license and $1499 for the real license, the Pro one. Point is, considering all the things 3ds Max can do, the price is comparatively pretty good. And if you qualify for the Indie license, it is very good. On this point though, it will never beat Blender, which is free, so we'll have to look at some other advantages that it has. So poly modeling and spline modeling. Basically, modeling in general in 3ds Max is a huge advantage that it has. Personally, I love the modeling capabilities of 3ds Max, specifically because of how versatile it is and how much power it has. I often tell people the only limit to what you can create or model in 3ds Max is your own imagination, and that even goes for animation too. This is not true of some simpler, easier to use modeling software. A robust set of poly modeling tools is essential for me when I need to make hyper-realistic custom furniture, decor, architectural details, etc. And I make a lot of custom models. Other software can be very limited in this realm, and so artists become reliant on purchasing pre-bought models and importing them into their software. This is a great resource, obviously, but it doesn't work for custom designs, which is what I'm doing a lot of the time. Another element of 3ds Max modeling that I love is what I call spline modeling. I don't know what it's actually called. There is a whole set of tools based around just drawing lines, adjusting with Bezier curves, and then extruding them. This way of doing things is highly modifiable after the fact, so it is always easy to go back and change things later. This method and these tools are particularly useful for architecture, where many of the shapes are flat, like walls, floors, etc. For buildings and sites, I can usually build all of it just using spline modeling. When I have to get into fine details with more organic shapes, I rely on polymodeling. To me, it's very important to have both of these capabilities built in because that is the most efficient workflow for me. So spline modeling leads me to another point, and that is modifiers. Of course, 3ds Max is kind of known for its modifier stack, which is extremely useful for Archviz. This is because so much of what Archviz artists do involves iterating. Changes to your model are just a fact of life in Archviz. The fact that 3ds Max allows you to keep a history of your work via the modifier stack, and you can go back and adjust any of your previous steps at any time, that is huge. Not to mention the fact that the enormous amount of modifiers adds huge amounts of capabilities to any spline, standard primitive, polygon model, or anything else in your scene. The process of starting with simple shapes and modifying them to become extremely complex organic objects becomes very evident in 3ds Max with its modifiers. Just as an example, the UVW and UVW unwrap modifiers offer all the control you need over the mapping of any object down to the minute details. This is an extremely useful and necessary capability that is highly lacking in some other software packages. This is just one of the many examples of very powerful modifiers, but also just being able to lay these out in a modifier stack is extremely helpful in my opinion. It's a huge advantage for 3ds Max, specifically when it comes to Archviz. Industry standard software. Okay, this might seem like a lame reason to like a software. Maybe it just started sooner or has better marketing. But in my opinion, being an industry standard actually has some really important benefits. The first thing is that as an Archviz artist on a daily basis, I get asked, can you open this file? Or I just have to start every project by opening a model from somewhere else or from someone else. The fact that 3ds Max is powerful and an industry standard means that it has a really good chance of being able to open files from elsewhere. If you're really lucky, whoever is sending you files may also be using 3ds Max. This brings up another point too. If you're buying models, there is a really good chance they are available in 3ds Max, especially high-end models because Max is awesome at modeling stuff. There is absolutely no shortage of assets made specifically for 3ds Max, and a lot of this is because it is an industry standard and lots of people use it. This is true for internet forums too, and this is another really important element. Software needs to be so widely used that a simple Google search will bring up forums where very specific, very niche questions are being asked and answered about your software. Let's face it, this is how we all figure stuff out. Since 3ds Max has been around a really long time and has been widely used within Archviz, all the answers you seek are out there already on forums or YouTube tutorials. Please subscribe. Overall, industry standard software has its benefits. And this brings me to my final point. Because 3ds Max is a popular software for Archviz, there are a lot of very high-end Archviz plugins that are developed specifically for 3ds Max. The ultimate plugin for me, of course, is VRay. I love the way it perfectly integrates with and extends the capabilities of 3ds Max. Now it can actually even act as my asset library with Cosmos and even my scatter tool with VRay Scatter. But beyond that, it already handles my lighting, materials, and rendering in a very streamlined and highly photorealistic way. It has additional tools like proxies, which save memory and streamline my workflow. Personally, I think 3ds Max and VRay, or similar, is still the killer combo when it comes to a full-blown professional modeling and animation tool, and professional rendering tool to go with it. Most of the super high-end, highly photorealistic renderings I see online are still created with 3ds Max plus VRay, or maybe 3ds Max plus Corona, which is of course very similar in capability to VRay. Another plugin I use extensively is Force Pack Pro, but really the possibilities with plugins are endless. There is no shortage of plugins that can increase the power of 3ds Max even further, again making it a great solution for a program with virtually no limit to what it can create. So to summarize, 3ds Max is the best Archviz software out there because it is actually pretty competitive in its pricing, and if you qualify for the Indie license, it is actually excellent in its pricing. 2, it can model absolutely anything, and it has some specific modeling tools that I really like that are very much suited to specific Archviz tasks. It has the Modifier Stack, which is very Archviz friendly because Archviz projects often or regularly change and adjust as they go. It's an industry standard software, so there are tons of resources available for it in the forms of plugins, models you can buy, and also just answers to all your software questions. And the last point is there are tons of plugins available for it, and many of those plugins are designed to make it even more perfect for Archviz. So there you have it. I've made my case for why 3ds Max is the best Archviz software out there still. But if you want to know the real reason why it's actually the best, it's because I've used it for a really long time. I'm good at it. I have an efficient workflow. I'm used to it, and I don't want to learn a whole new software. So, personal preference. Seriously though, I am really glad I put in the time early in my career to learn 3ds Max because it has never limited me since that point as far as what I was able to create. Animations, special effects, particle effects, camera tracking, crazy huge projects, crazy huge models with enormous amounts of polygons. It has handled it all either completely on its own or with an additional plugin. I realize there are other software out there that perform well in several of these areas, but I do feel like Max truly hits on all the areas I mentioned the best. As an example, a lot of people use SketchUp and to great effect, and it has a lot of the things that I mentioned. But personally, I feel like it's lacking in the hardcore poly modeling tools that I need all the time to create custom furniture and other organic models. Maybe if you're a big-time SketchUp user, you disagree with me. Let me know in the comments why I'm wrong. I see more and more people using Blender now as well, which is obviously a very powerful software, and it's free. I would not call it an industry standard yet, and I think I would find it a bit lacking in the modifier stack and in the spline modeling that I love so much for Archviz in 3ds Max, especially since I'm so used to that workflow already. Again, I might be totally wrong about that. If you're a Power Blender user and you use it for Archviz, let me know in the comments why you love it. In fact, I'd love to know what software you are using and why. Let me know in the comments, and if I've sold you at all on 3ds Max, check out my 3ds Max Mastery course in the description below. It covers everything you need to know in a concise and easy to understand manner. Trust me, it's a lot better than fumbling around the internet from tutorial to tutorial and not even knowing the right questions to ask. I have been there. This is better than that. And the price is seriously an amazing value, especially if you get the special YouTube discount with the links below. So check that out. And as always, thank you for watching, and stay tuned and subscribe for more Archviz content coming soon.